Hello and welcome to Inside Razorback Stadium, where unranked Arkansas just took down number 4 Tennessee 19-14, handing Tennessee their first loss of the season. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network, and we're staying on the field that Arkansas fans just stormed and got out of here, celebrating a big win, maybe the biggest win, probably the biggest win under Sam Pittman. I mean, it's the first time they've beaten a top 5 team at home since 1999, when they also beat Tennessee. And it was ugly. It felt like neither team really wanted to do much in that first half. You think to Tennessee getting shut out for the first time under Josh Heupel in the first half. And then in Arkansas side of things, where you are an inch short on 2 4th downs, you drop an easy touchdown, you miss another guy that's wide open for a touchdown, you miss a field goal. And so somehow it's halftime and you're sitting looking at the score and it's 3-0. Just how ugly was that first half? And kind of, it felt like Tennessee still was probably going to win at that point, but it's still like, it kind of told you early that things were maybe not going as planned.
Yeah, no, you said it exactly how I was feeling during that first half. You know, it felt like Arkansas had a lot going right for it, had a lot of momentum. Obviously playing at home helped with that. And you know, you're driving downfield, like you mentioned, those 4th down conversions, you get those. They just weren't able to get in the end zone, and it felt like that was going to come back to bite them. We've seen, not to the extent of Tennessee being shut out in the first half. We've seen games like this where teams, you know, you see it, you can watch college football all day today and see games like that where you don't take advantage of it. I think of Virginia Tech a few weeks ago, or last week against Miami. You know, you didn't take advantage of those opportunities. It just felt like that kind of game, and then you're feeling pretty confident, you know, when Tennessee comes out there and you know, Dylan Sampson, the line's able to open up some holes for him. He's able to burst off that 53-yard run right here behind us. And then set up that touchdown drive. You go on another, and then you're up 14-3, and you feel like Tennessee's kind of found that rhythm. Still going to be kind of an ugly game, but one you're going to escape with. And you feel pretty good even going up until, you know, once Arkansas loses Taylon Green, who was having a pretty efficient day, 266 passing yards, I think, before he had that injury. You know, and then they bring in Malachi Singleton. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of confidence there in him being able to throw the ball, him being able to get him downfield. They break off a couple big runs. I think you could talk a lot about the offense, obviously, but the defense, which had been so dominating, it looked like it reverted a little bit into its older ways. Like it looked at times last year, especially how it looked in 2022, just giving up big plays in the worst moments. And certainly that last drive for Arkansas was one of them.
Do you think that was the worst half under Heupel so far? It was definitely the worst first half under Heupel in his 3.5 years now. The other two that come to mind, both last year, Alabama in the second half when Tennessee falls apart and loses the game they absolutely shouldn't have after that first half. And probably Missouri in the second half on the road, where he didn't have a great first half either, but things really fell apart in that second half. Does this overshadow those two? Because for me it does. For me, with the expectations that Tennessee had coming into this game, laying a goose egg in the first half, even though the defense bent but didn't break, I mean, that's got to be the worst half performance Tennessee's had under Heupel.
I'd 100% agree with you. I think that, you know, you look back at those 2 games last year, you know, certainly that Missouri game, Tennessee, there's really nothing at stake for them. I think maybe going into that game, they had a very outside chance to get sneak into the SEC championship game, but it was slim at best going into that game. So, you know, you just kind of take the loss there, and certainly Missouri was playing well at the end of the year on the road too. And then obviously Alabama, I mean, that one's frustrating for a lot of reasons. It's a rival. It's a game you won in 2022. You come in, you have a chance. It looks like you're going to run away with it in Tuscaloosa. Those are certainly tough pills to swallow, but like you said, there was so much more at stake in this game. You know, with an expanded playoff, Tennessee still has a chance.
Probably lose one more.
Yeah, but you're
one more mess up, but then even then you're probably like a 9, 10, 11 seed, and you're going on the road in that first game.
Yeah, it definitely, this loss makes it a lot tougher. And when you look at today, and you're watching before this game, right as soon as this game kicks off, Alabama goes and has a monumental upset loss at Vanderbilt. Georgia struggles, doesn't look great against Auburn. They haven't really looked great all year. You're feeling, going into this one, you're feeling really good about getting out of here. Then you go for a month, you're at home. You get Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi State at home before you go to Georgia. A loss tonight just changes so much, I think, for Tennessee. Again, certainly a lot still on the table for them, but you certainly feel like this loss it narrows, it makes the margin a little bit slimmer for Tennessee to mess up.
I mean, we're talking about before the game, where obviously the AP poll doesn't necessarily matter at this point in the year, but you're looking at the Alabama score against Vanderbilt and you're going, Tennessee goes in here and whoops the tail off of Arkansas, then all of a sudden, maybe Tennessee's the number one team in the country. I mean, really, it'd just be between them and Texas.
Yeah.
Or I mean, maybe Ohio State's in there too. They haven't really played much of a schedule yet in that Big Ten. Not really a lot of competition for them, but Tennessee would have at least been in the question for being the number one team in the country if you take care of business tonight. But they don't do that, and now we'll have to see where they drop. But once again, I mean, that's not the biggest deal in the world where you're ranked in the AP poll at this point. Let's talk about the offense, though, and kind of the complete game offense that Tennessee had. They have 2 drives there right after halftime where Dylan Sampson kind of does the work, and he finishes the game with a nice stat line, 22 carries, which is a good workload, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, has that long of 53, 6.4 average on the ground. Deshaun Bishop gets 3 carries for 19 yards, so 6.3 average for him. Pretty good game and limited work. Through the air, Nico completes 16 of 28. He was really efficient up until kind of this final stretch of the game when he was kind of having to make things happen. No touchdowns, no interceptions, 103.9 rating. Do you put a little bit of on Nico? Do you put it on the offensive line? Does it go on Josh Heupel in the play calling? To you, what was the issue tonight that Tennessee's not scoring in the first half, scoring too quick in the second half, and then getting blanked from there?
You know, I think it's really a mixture of all three. I know that's a super low-hanging fruit answer, but I mean, if I had to pinpoint one, you know, the offensive line has not been great the last 2 games, and I think that played a huge factor in the play calling. We talked about it on the podcast this week. I think that played a huge factor in the play calling in the second half against Oklahoma. Obviously, Tennessee's defense was playing really well to where you didn't feel like there was much pressure on the offense to go out there and maybe open up the playbook a little bit. Tonight, Tennessee was in desperation mode, certainly on that last drive, and then again I wouldn't say coming out of halftime because you still got a lot of time left. You're down 3-0, but I think, you know, that offensive line, it's a liability right now, and I can't remember how many sacks Nico ended up taking tonight. 4, I guess, maybe 5.
Arkansas is going to get credit with 4 sacks on Nico, but there's also a couple where maybe he gets 1 yard, so it doesn't go down as a sack, but he's at least flushed out of the pocket. I mean, the last play of the game, when he's flushed out of the pocket, he talked about what was going through his head on that play, wanted to find Dante, thought he maybe had him for a second. At that point, there's got 2 guys in the way. He thought the ball would get batted down, so he tucked it, went to his next read, looked for Chris Brazzell. He was guarded, and by the time he kind of rolled out, wanted to maybe pull the trigger, felt the ball slip in his hand a little bit, and at that point, it's not too late, knows that next time you kind of just have to let it fly and live with the results. But that partially is because maybe you don't have as much time as you want in the pocket. And some of that also goes to the receivers, though, because there was a lot of times where Nico looks down the field and he just didn't have a lot of options. And it was frustrating when it's like, okay, the offensive line finally maybe gives you a little bit of time in the pocket. You look down the field and you're just not getting separation. And there's the one throw to Squirrel that he's going to want back. That would have been a really long touchdown and probably the difference in this game. But that's really the only time where Nico looked down the field and had an option to throw it. But go back to that offensive line. It's disappointing that it's this bad because I mean, it's not the worst in the conference by any means. I don't want to act like it's abysmal. But it's the standard that Tennessee thought it was going to be, and that kind of looking from the outside we thought it was going to be, was so much higher. You get John Campbell to return, a guy who's in his 7th year of college football, and he hasn't been very reliable for Tennessee. You bring in a former 5-star in Lance Hurd out of LSU, and he also just hasn't been very reliable, and he misses 2 straight games in the middle of that. You get both of those guys back in this game, and maybe you think, okay, well, there's those struggles at Oklahoma, but you had Larry Johnson and Dane Davis playing. Now you get the 2 tackles back, and those problems are still there against a worse defense. And that does kind of raise some eyebrows and cause some concerns for me, because you're going to face good defensive lines. Alabama's obviously got a good defensive line. Georgia's obviously got a good defensive line. And now you're in a situation, since you lost this game, where you can only lose one of those. And you can't afford to lose both of those, where if you take care of business here, you lose to Alabama, you lose to Georgia, you're probably still in that playoff picture. I do think a little bit of it, though, does go on the play calling. And it's tough to sit completely on the outside and be like, you should have called this play and that play. Like it's easy to be that armchair play caller and stuff like that. But Tennessee just didn't feel like they trusted Nico to make plays for a lot of this game until it was too late down the stretch. And then you see he makes a big play to Dante. And I understand you don't want to put a young quarterback in a crazy situation on the road and put him in kind of like complete harm's way, but we were sitting there in like the fourth quarter, and it's like they've thrown the ball over the middle maybe like one time to Chaz Nimrod, who makes that tough catch for a first down. And I know part of that's maybe the receivers aren't getting separation, don't have a lot of time, and things play into that. But I feel like this loss for Tennessee fans would be a lot easier to stomach if it's because Nico went out there and threw the ball around and made some plays, but ultimately made some mistakes, maybe made an error here or there, and things unfolded that way, like how Tennessee lost maybe in 22 or 21 in some of those games, rather than what it was tonight, where it just felt like Tennessee didn't want to maybe put the ball in Nico's hands and let him win the game until the end. Excuse me. You saw the potential. We've seen the potential of what he can do all season. It just feels like now from the Oklahoma game, which you understand partially of what the plan was there, and then now that they're just not really letting Nico be that guy, and they're not letting him be the Heisman caliber quarterback and make big plays, and I think that's something that's going to have to change going forward. I understand he's young. I understand it's like his 6th start ever, but the expectations, he's a program kind of altering quarterback. So I feel like you have to go live and die with that, and I feel like that's not what Tennessee's done now. Feels like 2023 offense more than 2022 offense. 2022 was a really good team, and what made it even more fun was how good that offense was. 2023 was a good team, but not a great team, and the offense wasn't great either, and it made it maybe a little more sluggish. Well, I mean, the last 2 games, it's looked like the 2023 offense more than 22 offense, and I think that's when this team can kind of reach that ceiling, is if you start seeing the 2022 offense with the 2024 defense. But defensively, what were your thoughts on how Tennessee handled today? Obviously, starting quarterback goes out, Taylor Green, at the end of the game, but had a pretty nice game. His final stat line for the games, 19 for 27 for 266 yards, 70% completion percentage, no touchdowns, but didn't turn the ball over, which has been an issue for him. And then he used his feet as well, whether it was to extend plays or just tuck it and run. I mean, he's going to finish with negative rushing yards, but that counts the sacks as well. But how do you feel like Tennessee's defense played? And I will say, Taylor Green's an example. Arkansas came in here and they said, we're going to let Taylor Green win us this football game. And he went out and he didn't set the world on fire, but he played a good game, and Arkansas storms the field. But how does the defense go?
We talked about past seasons. We've certainly in the last 4 years seen Tennessee defenses that are worse than the way they played tonight, obviously. I think it's just a lot of – you saw them clamp down a little bit more in the second half. In particular, Arkansas's first couple of drives, even when Taylor Green was healthy, they were able to – it seemed like they had made their adjustments. They were able to kind of hold him in check, and that allowed the offense to come down and get those 2 touchdown drives. But it was just little things here and there, letting them extend drives, picking up 3rd downs, which has been a big problem in the last couple of weeks. 3rd and longs, and fortunately for Tennessee, and we're saying differently about the defense. I'm not saying they were great by any means, but if Arkansas doesn't get stopped on 4th and 1 twice and miss a field goal, maybe we're saying different things about how this defense performed. But just not getting off the field in certain situations. The penalties were just that didn't help either, and just very kind of unnecessary type things. And Jordan Ross, obviously that's on a punt, but that
Jordan Ross punt's tough too, though, because Josh Heupel comes in and says they're in prevent. They're not trying to block that punt. They're not. They're just trying. They're saying, hey, if you fake it, we're gonna be ready for it. We're gonna let you get this punt off. Jackson Ross kind of sees the seam and wants to take advantage, make a big play, and ultimately it's a free first down for Arkansas. So it's things like that. It's Omar Norman Lott roughing the passer and going too low and extending drives. That it does hurt.
No, and I think another thing too in the secondary that was a little bit. I don't know if concerning is the right word, but there were a couple big plays that they picked up on some guys that have played really well. Jermod McCoy being one. A guy we talked a lot about last week and in the last couple weeks who's played really, really well as a transfer from Oregon State. And has kind of fit in really good, but gives up a big play here. I think on the one where Taylor Green was hurt.
Yeah, it was.
You saw little things like that where. Again, not an overall performance where you're like, oh no, this defense isn't as advertised or not as good as we thought they were, but certainly a few things here and there they can't afford to do again, and certainly not on the road. And luckily, again, they get to be at home for the next month, but
really.
With some very winnable games in there, you would think. But after this, There's no game on Tennessee's schedule is safe, I think.
Yeah, I think this game definitely strikes some fear into Tennessee's fans' hearts with Florida coming to town next week. Just with the history between the two teams, and Tennessee losing to Florida teams they feel like they shouldn't. That's obviously the case this upcoming week. It's a Florida team Tennessee should not and really has no excuse to lose to, especially at home. Or you see what happened here, and maybe that does scare some people. But yeah, the defense, they get lucky at times. You have 2 4th downs. I mean, the one, his knee barely hits the grass, and you're an inch short and it's going the other way. The other one, it feels like you're an inch short again. Like if the ball's in the other hand, it's a first down, but it's in the other hand, so it's short. So you get off the field with some lucky stuff. You have a missed field goal, that's lucky. You blow coverage, and Taylor Green doesn't see it. I don't want to say blow coverage, but Taylor Green makes a nice play, and you have a guy in the end zone, he drops it. So you get lucky, but also hold the team to 19 points.
Yeah.
It's not really the defense's fault.
Exactly,
right?
and that's I was going to say that too. You know, they played good enough to win the game. I mean, with all of the little things here and there, the giving up some big plays, giving up some third downs, the penalties. Ultimately, they played good enough to win the game, and really, the offense did nothing with it. Every time, again, we talk about those 4th down stops, talk about the missed field goal, the energy that we could see from the press box on Tennessee's sideline, the section of Tennessee fans here. It just kind of felt like, all right, here it goes. You know, Tennessee's there's some momentum here on the road. You got an opportunity now. Just kind of felt like that jolt they were waiting for, and the offense would come out and then not take advantage of that. So, yeah, again, a game where you could pinpoint some things the defense did wrong, but ultimately a good enough performance for Tennessee to win this game tonight.
Yeah, special teams. Besides obviously the Jordan Ross penalty. Yeah. I think besides that, they're like the specialists, I guess. Yeah. I think Jackson Ross had a nice game. Maybe a touchback and one out of bounds that probably could have been better, but all things considered, he did a good job flipping the field for the most part. Yeah. No issues with the snaps, obviously, for Matthew Selansky. That kind of goes without saying now. And then Max Gilbert, just 2 extra points, but right down the middle. And then Josh Turby's on the kickoff, so I think everything went back for a touchback. So I don't really think there was, outside of a couple punts, really much room for returns, which is kind of Tennessee's specialty on special teams. It's just not even giving other teams a chance to return the ball. So special teams did their part too. I think really a lot of it is what's the offense going to look like going forward. Yeah. The offense can find its footing. If the offense can start playing at a high level like they've shown that they're capable of, then Tennessee's going to still go really far and have a really good season. And I expect that to be the case. But it does raise some questions, and we'll see. I think we'll get a lot of them answered during this home stretch, but especially early in the home stretch with Florida and then Alabama, a big stretch of games. But Tennessee also gets banged up out here today. Yeah. Some guys injured. We'll have to see what those tests look like, but this could be a situation where the loss isn't just here at Razorback Stadium, but maybe kind of lingers as well. So something to look out for as kind of this next week progresses and Tennessee learns more about some of these injuries to some key guys, and then also kind of going forward throughout the season and see how Tennessee deals with it. They have another bye week, I believe. Is it right after the Alabama game?
I think so, yeah, coming up
before in between Alabama and Kentucky, I want to say. Yeah. So they do have another one coming up, a 2 bye week season for Tennessee to maybe get a little bit more healthy. But this one, they got healthy, but couldn't do enough to win off the bye week. That'll do it all from us here, though, today in Fayetteville. Make sure you go to VolReport.com for all of our content from kind of our instant reactions to right after the game with Noah's Gamer, and then my key takeaways where we just kind of give our thoughts kind of right away from that final whistle. Hear what Josh Heupel and some players, Nico Iamaleava, Dylan Sampson, and Keenan Peely had to say. We'll have the transcript of Josh Heupel as well, and then more content from tonight's game, and then the rest of the football season. Men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball, everything you need Tennessee Athletics over at VolReport.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Links to everything is in the description. Thank you for watching.